Hello, I'm ZOiD. Welcome to another video. This video is about me recreating the track On by Aphex Twin. The beats in On. The first time I heard that track, I was probably 14 or 15 years old. It was just before I got into electronic music. I was into Jimi Hendrix and commercial rock bands like Ugly Kid Joe and the Spin Doctors and stuff like that. But there was this guy, I've mentioned him many times, Alan Dobbin. He lived down my road. We'd been to school together. We knew each other from primary school when we were like 4 or 5. And he was actually like the school bully in the primary school. And I didn't like, we had a few kind of fights and stuff, but we used to skateboard together sometimes. And he was like much taller than me. And he was like, we weren't friends when we were young in primary school. But at some point when I was about 14 years old, I think On came out in 93. It was, it's probably 14 and a half or something. On probably just came out. And this kid, it was like a year and a bit younger than me, Alan, who lived like just down the road from me. We met up and he was like, I'm playing records on a pirate music station. Do you want to come up and hang out? Which I just didn't know what he meant at all. Like, I didn't know what, it was cool to listen to records, but I didn't know there was like all this techno was happening. I just didn't know anything about it. So anyway, I was like, yeah, okay. And I went up. The pirate station was like the DLR pirate station. I can't remember what the name of it was now, but it was up. I remember exactly where it was. It was in the flats off Abbey Road in Dean's Grange near Baker's Corner. And it was a radio station in one of these little flats. And Alan must have been 13 and he had a show playing records on that pirate station. And I went up there and listened to him play records. And one of the records he played was Aphex Twin On. And at that point, I didn't even connect with, I didn't even get it. It was so alien to me. And I just was like, what is going on here? And it was just weird and curious, him playing these records. He was so ahead of his time how he figured this out. He was playing like Aphex Twin, the Orb, orbital stuff like that. So a 13-year-old kid who just like out of nowhere found this, no one told him, no one showed him. Other people in our bigger brothers around the estate and stuff were listening to the Dead Kennedys and punk, and no one was listening to electronic music. He just somehow started buying records when he was 11 or 12, and he just kept looking for music, and he just found this music, and then techno. And another guy, actually there was, my next door neighbor Derek and Alan were friends and talked about music, and Derek's brother did have some influence, I'm sure. He had a great collection and had some Aphex Twin records and had like Global Communications and Reload stuff, and collections of short stories, all that. So yes, there was definitely a little influence there from Derek and his brother Niall. Took me another year after that, maybe, before I had a few more encounters with Alan and Derek. We started becoming friends then, and at a point I started going to Alan's house every day after school and just hanging out there. His room was like the small room and it just had a bed and a desk with turntables and just records everywhere and ashtrays, and we just smoked and listened to records. And Alan taught me about techno in those after school sessions, just listening to records for hours and hours. And Alan would make these mixtapes and he passed them around. There'd be a 60 or 90 minute mix. The best mixtapes ever. And they're all gone. Nobody has them anymore. But the mixes were, he worked on them for weeks and weeks and weeks. He crafted them. He made the perfect journey of 90 minutes, starting from like deeper techno into harder techno. It was always like a smooth increase in intensity until it was like just amazingly like crazy techno. So that was my journey of getting into techno when I was 14, 15, 16. And at a point, maybe a year or two after that session, I heard, I found I Care Because You Do, as someone had recorded a cassette, and I found it in my friend Caroline's house, and I was just like, started listening to that. And that was also unfamiliar at first. I was like, what is this? And a second, third, fourth listen, I got absolutely addicted to it. I heard On again, and then when I heard it again, I was like fascinated by the sounds, and just I've always just those beats in On. I mean, the riff at the start is amazing, and the field recordings, but when the percussion and the beats come in, I've always been like, how was that made? So somewhere along the line, I've many times tried to create similar sounds, but it never really went anywhere near like it. And at some point a few years ago, I heard someone make a comment about it, the Casio FZ1 sampler, early sampler that Aphex used, and that it had a certain kind of distortion when you sampled into it. And I just thought maybe that is how that bass sound was made. And a couple of months ago, I saw an Casio FZ1 on eBay for £350 or something, and I thought, why not get one and test this theory out? And I got it, but when it arrived, it was cracked on the front and had been dropped on the way, and it didn't work. So it was very disappointing. I plugged it in, I tried loads of things, it didn't work. So it was doing weird stuff. The mix output didn't work. The other outputs sometimes intermittently worked. I brought it to the Hackspace in Bristol, couldn't fix it. I brought it to Emil Bristol Audio Repair, who fixed it up, even fixed the crack at the front, fixed it up perfectly. So I got it back last week, and took a while to kind of figure my way around it. And today I tried to recreate the beats of On, and I used the FZ1 for the kick drum and the bass sound and the percussion. And I do think this is where those sounds came from. But also I think it's not just that, there's definitely analog distortion. It's driven through some kind of analog mixer. There's probably hardware compressors and hardware EQs. I did think that it was just going to sound like that straight out. I was right and I was wrong. I believe that it was used in the creation of the track, but it's not what gives the track its sound. There's loads of other things, which is totally obvious now in hindsight. It's never one instrument. It's always a chain of things. So, even a TB303, you think, or an 808 or a 909, you think, oh, if I had those, I'd make amazing music. No, you wouldn't. If you had a 303, an 808, and a 909 right now, you'd make them sound like shit, actually. I would. They don't sound that great on their own. You're not going to make a amazing Aphex or Robert Hood or Jeff Mills track if someone gave you a real 808, 909, and 303 tomorrow. What are you going to have to learn how to record them, how to process them, how to make them sound good? That's an interesting lesson. So let's dive into the track and let's have a look at what I did to make the sounds, process the sounds, and you can decide for yourself whether you think this is what was used or something else. It doesn't really matter. I have learned a lot doing this, so I'm glad I did it. And that is it. So let's jump over into this track. All right. Okie dokie. Here is my recreation of On. Here's the original track. I wasn't using headphones, so I can hear now that the room was really affecting the EQ of the bass. So I'll see if I can fix that a bit. I know this is crazy. It's better. So the hardest thing is getting the bass right, but I mean, it's closer than I ever got before, let's say. So we have a bit of field. This is all my recreations. Got that from some sound effects library. This I'd done before. Did the pads today. Not much work in that. We've got this high percussion off the FZ1, low percussion off the FZ1, snare off the FZ1, bass drum, and the bass. So like I said in the intro, I do think the sounds came from FZ1. I'll just go through each one and explain how I did it. So starting with the I started with the bass, the bass drum. So the bass drum was sampled from this, from a here. Oh, why can't we hear this now? Oh yeah, external out, that's why. Main. So this is just a Ableton 707. I sampled that into the FZ1 and I got this back out. Okay, that's not right. Oh, you can hear me playing with the filters on it. Oh, this one, yeah, okay, that one, the first time I recorded it was like quite overdriven, and there's something about the FZ1 when you send in two signals that are too hot, it does something to the sound, distorting it. So actually that doesn't sound like the on bass drum, but I thought that sounds cool, I might use that for something else. And that's me just manually moving the filters on the FZ1. Alright. Every time I do a screen video, the fan works really hard, so I hope that's not annoyingly loud in the video. So that's just a quieter version there of the same 707 bass drum. So sampled into FZ1, it sounds quite similar to the one in the track. Okay, next we have the bass. So to get the bass sound, I used a just simple operator sine wave. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. So this is, oops, no, main. So this is just, it's a, I figured out as a B flat note. So that's a B flat sine wave. And I sampled it into but we're not hearing that. Here we go. External out. Main. So this is what it sounded like. That's the sound of the when you sample the sine wave right into FZ1, it comes out like this. So I do believe that is the source sound for the track. I mean, there's probably an analog synth of some kind making the note, but it was sampled in an FZ1 and I had this kind of distortion. Squidgy, but it didn't sound right yet. Well, actually, that's the sound with loads of processing. So before, when it was absolutely just raw out of the FZ1, it sounded like this. So not that much character. So what I did was we added first you can hear it's very noisy. If I turn up you can hear that background noise off the FZ1 is very high. So we got first of all a gate to take out the noise, and then I added a bit of lower, some Saturn II adding harmonics, driving it, some EQ, more bass, and then a lot of compression, bringing up the signal quite a lot. And then I still wasn't really happy with that sound, so I sent it through an electron analog heat, and then I got this. And then I added more EQ to that one, and I played around with it a bit with the actual waveforms. So if I take the warp off, it doesn't sound any different. I'm having a few little glitchy things. Ooh, don't like that. Ableton's being weird today. It's like the warp modes are not being applied as they should, which is weird. Okay, I've never had that before. Warp mode's not really working or something today. So that was the bass, and then for the percussion, what I recorded, I sampled some percussion from some field recordings that I had done. Where is it? Oh. Yes. Oh. I may have deleted it by mistake. Yes, I think I deleted the MIDI parts. I didn't mean to. Okay, so it was some. This is the part. Okay, so I was. It wasn't these sounds. No, because I changed the. Okay, let me just drop this back down here. Make a copy. So the sounds that I used was actually. Maybe that one. So anyway, it meant a metal percussion I recorded myself. I think that's probably the source sound of that. It's probably some kind of metal field recording in the track. Play it. With some kind of effects on it as well. So after I recorded that sound into the FZ1, I found out that the shorter one well, that doesn't sound great because I got the gate, a really short gate. Be better like that. It's just a very, very short sound. I could probably put an EQ8 on there. Too much bass. It's better. Yeah, this one also needs high pass. I put some chorus on. I'm not hearing the chorus now. Just a little bit, of course. Some kind of effect on there, but couldn't nail it exactly right. But that's all the parts then. So all together. Oh yeah, I forgot. I wasn't happy with that, so I re-recorded it at a different pitch. So that's much closer, and I think that taught me that some of those very punchy and metallic Aphex percussion sounds are really very truncated, very short samples in different kinds of samplers, giving a very Aphexy sound. So that's all the parts. Here's the Aphex. So much bigger, so much warmer, so much huger, and that's just, you know, the skill and the equipment as well, knowing it, how to get it. It's a lot of experimentation that he did. I just like tried to recreate it in one morning, but you know, he has at that time that he made that, obviously a lot more time went into it, and I think I got closer than I ever got before. So I might just show you one actual sampling on the FZ1 so you can see how that works, and then that'll be it for this vid. It's quite long. All right. Okay, it's really hard to see the screen on the FZ1, really hard to see it, but there is a sine wave bass coming from Ableton. I'm going to send it to external output 7. And then I'm going to have to turn on that's the background noise from the FZ1. Okay, now I'm going to go to source select sampling. At the moment, that's a metal percussion I sampled in here. I'm gonna delete it. Enter, delete, yes. Okay, and then I'm gonna just hit start. So enter, okay, it's sampling the bass. And then what we get is, oh, why can't we hear it? Maybe it didn't sample it. Try again. That is the sound of the sine wave sampled into the FZ1. Which it doesn't sound like the on bass, but I think it is, but it's processed through other EQs, compressors and stuff, and gets that real hit then. Maybe pitch down an octave. That's what I think.